Sweet. It looks like we are live. Welcome into the live betting stream this week for the AT&T Byron Nelson. It's a new stream. I don't always do a betting preview, but I got ahead on some of my other content. Figured might as well go live, talk about my betting cards, some of my favorite first round leaders, matchups, three balls, all that sort of fun stuff. And as per usual, to answer all your questions down in the chat. So going to go ahead and hop right on into it. First off, we're going to go through the winners board. We're going to talk about my favorite outrights. And as of right now, I've only fired on 3 outrights, but there are a ton on the board that I'm considering adding. So at the top of the board, you can see the best number you can find on guys like Justin Thomas and Scottie Scheffler are over there at Bet365. Personally, I didn't end up firing on JT. I think he has a really good chance of winning, but at the sportsbook that I have access to, the number quickly drifted down to the single digits. Now, it's not Draftkings that I have access to, but that same book also has him down there at 9-1. So I understand that he is the deserving favorite, but I'm not one to go out there and force bets. Now, other guys at the top that I know a lot of other people are considering betting. I mean, of course, Scottie Scheffler, he's at 7-1, also single digits across a lot of the other sports books, but perhaps that 11-1 number gets you, right? I'm not going to be somebody to bet Scottie Scheffler this week. I certainly prefer Justin Thomas over Scheffler in pretty much every format, but 11-1, I think there's a little bit of value there. So if you're somebody that's just stringently placing bets in terms of EV, I do think that's one that you might just force add to your card there if you can get access to that 11-1 number. In terms of guys in the 20 range, you can see it jumps up rather quickly, and this is where I think a majority of your board should be, right? I haven't bet Justin Thomas or Scottie Scheffler. This is where a majority of the quote-unquote value would be. We'll just take questions as they come, of course. If there's anybody I skip over that you do want my take on, make sure to go ahead and comment that down below. But I'm just going to focus on the guys that either I've placed an outright bet on or that I'm considering for the most part. So Sam Burns at 20-1. I don't think there's enough juice there, to be honest. If you hit it at right around 24, 25-1 at the beginning of the week, then I think you probably had something working there. But at this point, now that he's down to 19, 18-1 at some books, 20-1 at DraftKings as it speaks right now, hopefully it drifts back in the other direction. But as of right now, I don't know how much there is to squeeze there, but certainly in the range of outcomes for him to win this week. Somebody that I think there's a little bit more value on would be Dustin Johnson. Now, I haven't bet Dustin Johnson, but he is one of those guys I am considering adding to my card. And that's because in the past, he's been excellent for these major championships. He's gone out there the last 3 times out. It was a 12th, a 2nd, and a 10th place finish. And in his career, he's won before majors before. So it's something that we've seen before. He usually likes to get into some type of form before getting out there. And of course, playing in one of the biggest events of the year. In terms of motivation, I think he's one of the few guys up top that legitimately wants to win this thing. I would say Justin Thomas is in that same type of boat, whereas a Scottie Scheffler, maybe even a Jordan Spieth, for that matter, maybe not so much. Maybe they're a little bit more focused on the PGA Championship than they are for this type of event. Nick Marsh says the Gala and Lanto. When we get across to those guys, it depends on what number you can get. Anytime you have a long shot, somebody in that mid-tier range, you're going to have a few books that price them up and a few books that, of course, price them way down, especially for somebody like a Lanto that has had so much success in Texas. I would imagine there's a relatively large spread there. So we'll talk about it when we get to the numbers. Both plays that I like in DFS, though. So if we can get the right number, could be worth a look there. We'll have to see here in a second. I don't know their numbers off the top of my head. Let's talk about the guys here in the 20-1 range that I do have a bet on. So first and foremost, Hideki Matsuyama. He's here at 31-1 right now. That's at FanDuel, I believe. Number I got was 29-1. So it's a little bit worse than what you can get at FanDuel right now. I don't have access to FanDuel as it stands, but if he's healthy, that number is egregiously incorrect. Should be closer to 18-1. Would be priced higher than guys like a Will Zalatoris, that's for sure. Sam Burns, I would imagine he would be a favorite over them because over the last 3 to 4 months, this guy's been an absolute print fest, right? Whether it's winning over there in the fall, winning the Masters last year. Hideki Matsuyama, when he finds the putter, which he's done more often than not of late, he's gaining to the field with the flat stick over his last 24 measured rounds. He's a hard guy to beat. So certainly somebody I'd like it 29-1. If you can get 31-1, even better. All the power to you out there. Another guy I bet was Taylor Gooch. He's 45 to 1. I got him at 42 to 1. So not quite the number you can get at DraftKings right now, but you can see it's similar to what they have him at right now at FanDuel. I like the number. I like the kid in general here. It's a perfect skill set fit for him. He's good at these birdie fests where you don't necessarily have to be all that accurate off the tee. Now, he's more accurate than most, but over the last 24 measured rounds, he's not been that same accurate self. And of course, it's more likely than not that he figures that out at some point. But even if he doesn't this week, it's not going to burn him. We have 40-yard wide fairways, 40.3 on average per all 14 fairways, just outrageously wide. So I don't see him having all that many issues this week. Moving down into the 50 to 1 range, I mean, Brooks, a lot of people consider him when he's over 30 to 1. I don't personally have interest here. He's never really had success at birdie fests. I mean, if you look at all of his wins, almost all of them are like in the teens under par at the very best. You know, he's not really going to win a golf tournament at 25 under par. That's just not the thing that Brooks goes out there and does. You could consider Joaquin. I think he's a decent pick there at 35 to 1. Particularly if you can get the access at DraftKings there. That's a pretty solid number. Obviously, a relatively available sportsbook as well for a lot of you in the illegal states out there. Moving on to this mid-tier range now, of course, like I said, already have a bet on Taylor Gooch, already have a bet on Hideki. Majority of the rest of the bets that I have are going to be in this mid-tier range, right? You know, it's 50, 70 to 1. I'm kind of scattershotting. And at this point, there's only one that I've placed, which is Maverick Mcneilly here at 55 to 1. We'll talk about him here in a second, but there are a good 3 to 4 more that I'll be adding here by Wednesday. Just haven't really made that decision yet. We'll talk through a couple that I'm considering. So first and foremost, the last outright I've actually placed this week is on Maverick Mcneilly, and that's because this is a distance golf course and also in long irons golf course. And all those, it's the 150 to 175, the 175 to 200, the 200 plus yard proximity range. He's always among the top 50 on tour. If you take a look at last year's stats, this year's stats, we're starting to get to the point of the year where we have a large enough sample size for that sort of thing. He ranks in the top 50, and that's what you're looking for, right? Somebody who's going to be able to hit those long irons, is relatively long off the tee to begin with, and a very solid putter. And I think that's the one thing that differentiates players this week is this isn't really a ball striker's golf course. This is a birdie fest. It's an easy golf course. The thing that kind of differentiates this birdie fest from a lot of the others is that you have the 4 par 5s, which of course is important for scoring, but also all of the par 3s are like 210 yards. You also have a few really long par 4s, also a few drivable par 4s. So it's all about scoring and putting, right? Taking advantage of those opportunities that are given to you. So that's why guys like Maverick Mcneilly, or guys, I like a lot more than guys like a Seamus Power, a Johnny Vegas, even an Adam Hadwin, because he's a more explosive putter. He's more explosive off the tee than, of course, guys like an Adam Hadwin or a Seamus Power. So that's the type of skill set that we're looking for here, especially with some of these elite tier options. And I'd even consider the guys in the 50 to 70 range to be elite tier players. You got to have a putter right now. If you're playing DFS, trying to take some value picks or that sort of thing, it's okay to take some of the worst putters at the bottom of the board, some of the better ball strikers. Just hope that they have a decent week with the flat stick. But if you're looking for somebody with more exposure, right, you're going to play 40% of them in DFS, or you're going to place, a 1-unit outright on them, that sort of thing here. You want to make sure that they have the flat stick. So that would be my advice there, especially here and like towards the top end of the board. Again, if it's 100 or 200 to 1, something like that, I'm a little bit more lenient about that type of thing. Cameron Champ drew my eye, particularly at 65 to 1. Now, the number I have is at 48 to 1, so it's closer to the 46 to 1 you're getting over there at FanDuel. But boy, oh boy, 65 to 1 at DraftKings. If that's something you can get access to, I would jump all over that. Now, he's not going to win very often. It's usually like once a year that Cameron Champ wins, but this is the exact type of venue where he tends to get that type of thing done. So, I would bet that if I had access to it. I'll just tell you that right now. He would be my 4th outright bet, just something that I personally don't have access to, though. Tommy Fleetwood at 65 to 1, not really something I would fire on. 66 to 1 for Adam Scott. That is at BetMGM, and also over there at Bogota. I don't know if I'd bet the 66 to 1. I just really don't think Adam Scott wins this golf tournament. Just seems like a higher line than it should be, though. Alex Noren, we haven't seen play all that often, but similar story to Adam Scott. If he's going to continue to play like he had over the fall stretch and over the limited sample size that we've seen from him over the last 2 months, that's a egregiously incorrect number. Should be closer to 35 or 40 to 1. He's really been playing like one of those players. Siwoo and Mark Leachman, they get a few side-eyed glares from me in this mid-tier range. Both of them have the winning upside we're looking for. Just, again, I don't know if they actually win this golf tournament. So that's why I haven't placed the outright bet yet. You have Lanto here at 80 to 1. I know Nick mentioned that as a question a little bit before. That number, if you can get it at DraftKings, I think it makes sense. But, 70, 66, or 60 to 1, I think that's fair, right? Across the industry, he's priced accordingly, except for DraftKings. So if you're going to hop on the Lanto train, I would do it quickly and do it quickly over there at DraftKings, because I would imagine that number gets steamed down to a more competitive number across the industry. He always has success in Texas. It's strange. He has an uncanny ability to find success on these fast bent grass greens, golf courses that are typically relatively difficult, right, because of the weather. Now, last year, this was not a difficult golf course. This year, even with some weather, I don't expect it to be a relatively difficult golf course. But maybe it's just the home cooking, right? Being down there in Texas, being amongst where he's familiar, all that sort of fun stuff would not surprise me at all if he went out there and had a big week. Nick Mars also wanted to know about Theegala, so we'll make sure to touch on him here in a second. Nick also asked about Aaron Wise. Good question. That's also dependent on number, so we'll have to catch up on that. So let me check. Let's find Aaron Wise and let's find Theegala for you. Now, Aaron Wise should be in the same type of range. Yeah, we passed him, I figured. Be a little bit further up the board. Got him at 55 to 150 over there at FanDuel and BetMGM. Let me think. I just think it's a fair number. He doesn't really have the putting we're looking for, right? So if you compare Taylor Gooch and Aaron Wise's games, right, Wise is a little bit more of a gainer off the tee. He's a little bit more accurate than Gooch, actually even a little bit longer, but a huge difference in their putting, particularly if you take a look at their bent grass splits. So I would much rather just have Taylor Gooch. I know the number's not the same, but I think it's a relatively large talent gap between the two. So I don't hate the play, Nick. I just don't think it's my favorite. And then you said also Lanto Griffin. Were you talking about Lanto? You mean Sahith Theegala, who should be like 150 to 1. Okay, if you can get the number at DraftKings, I love the Sahith Theegala pick. 90 to 1 at FanDuel, like that's where he should be. But if you can get 150 to 1 on him, I mean, look, he's 80 to 1 over here. What is that? And Caesars knows what's up. Caesars knows that they don't want to get hit by a Theegala windstorm, because the thing about Sahith Theegala, and I think that was a really good point there, Nick, is he's extremely volatile. When he's playing his best golf, he's gaining across all 4 categories. He's a spike putter. We saw that at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. We saw that at the Sanderson Farms. He's more than capable of winning golf tournaments. In fact, I expect him to either win this year or next year at the very least for the first time. 150 to 1, man, sign me up on that, Nick. I just don't have access to that number. I haven't checked last on over there on Bovada, but we'll have to see. Maybe I'll get on that with you. It'll have to be the right number from you though. And Catch Me If You Can says Sung Kang 500 to 1. He sucks ass, but he's a member there. The member is an interesting narrative to go with. Siwoo Kim was also a member at this golf course. So if you're looking at that type of thing, maybe even take a Siwoo Kim as well. Let's see, Sung Kang. Is he still 500 to 1? He is. He's 550 to 1 actually on FanDuel. I mean, if he's a hometown guy, I mean, Sung Kang, right? He pops every once in a while. He just kind of figures it out for 1 round sample sizes. If you're going to put like $1 on it, something like that, I think you could do a whole lot worse. I mean, if you put $5 on it and he wins, oh boy, right? And then you're sitting pretty there with over $2,500 for pretty much no investment. So in terms of that type of bet, where it's just a pure flyer, right? You're kind of just taking a chance on the board. I love that there. And I think there's a lot crazier bets that you could make. Nick Mars says, I bet it 150 to 1. Yeah, dude, I think that number at DraftKings makes a whole lot of sense. And David Farber says, I've already bet DJ at 22 to 1 and Willie Z at 25 to 1. At the beginning, I talked about DJ. Absolutely love him. Completely agree with you at the 22 to 1 number there. I think there's a lot of value. Then you said Willie Z at 25. Now, all right, so I still haven't decided what I'm doing with Willie Z. I'm not going to bet him at 22 to 1. So you got him before the number got steamed down. That's a lot more attractive to me. I just think that he should be like 30 to 1 realistically. The whole hometown narrative thing, he lives right down the road apparently. He's played this golf course before, says It's one of his favorite golf courses in the world. You know who also says that is Matt Fitzpatrick about how Hilton Head, and he also misses the cut there like almost every single year. So I have a hard time putting a lot of steam behind that. But if you got 25-1, I mean, the skill set makes a perfect sense, right? He's long off the tee, great with his approach play. The putter maybe leaves a little bit to be desired. That's why I prefer guys like a Dustin Johnson or even a Sam Burns over somebody like a Will Zalatoris. But he started to have something click there at the Masters, right? The stroke looked really free. A lot of the announcers were talking about that. I think you could do a whole lot worse. I couldn't recommend doing it now at 22-1, but you got 25-1. I think you do a whole lot worse than that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Any other comments? Nope, we're good. All right, let's keep going down the board. Let's talk about more of the longer shots now. Again, I haven't placed any long shot bets yet. A few that I'm going to consider adding, though, and we'll talk through a few of them. If you think Mito Pereira is healthy, 85-1 could make some sense, but I'm not really convinced that he's healthy yet. He was dealing with a back strain, had for the last month or so. Sebastian Munoz at 80-1. He's always worth a look at Birdie Fest. In fact, if you can get that number over there at MGM at 80-1, that would be something I'd fire on. Last time I checked, he was 75-1 though, so it was kind of on that teetering point for me. Or 75-1, it's a little bit of value. I think he's truly closer to a 65-1 or a 71 type of golfer. At 80-1, that's when you're starting to get a big enough edge there. So shop the number there for Munoz, might be able to find something. Pan Kazire at 100-1, he had a solid performance. The first time it was played here at Craig Ranch, I believe finished top 5, if my memory serves me correctly. But either way, long off the tee, high birdie or better percentage type of player, and really stout putter. And you guys can probably see a trend with these guys. I'm trying to make sure that they're at least an okay putter, right? They don't have to be world-class. Usually the world-class putters also aren't very long off the tee. But when we have somebody like a Pan Kazire or also a Keith Mitchell, who I don't know why I skipped over him here. He's one of my favorite bets on the board. I'm very much so considering adding a Keith Mitchell bet at 80-1. They also can spike that putter. We've seen it before. They're a little bit volatile in that category. Whereas we go to just pure ball striking specialists like a Bubba Watson, who pretty much never gains to the field with the flat stick. I'm not sure if the upside's there. Or for somebody like a Tommy Fleetwood, who, off the tee and the approach play, he never really has those spike weeks, right? It's just always a little bit above average. When he goes out there and he contends, it's because of the putter. Seamus Power, not the best putter. I mean, I can keep going through the board showing you more examples. I want guys that are long off the tee and have a really solid putter. Like, those are non-negotiables for me this week. And if they're elite in both categories, like somebody like a Pan Kazire, and he's 100-1, that screams value to me. So he's also somebody I'd consider adding. Same thing with a Keith Mitchell, both Sea Island boys. So maybe there's something there with that. 110-1 on Hoagie. It's not my favorite bet because of the putting, but you can make a whole lot worse bets out there. Ryan Palmer at 125-1. I don't think he's going to win, so I wouldn't place that bet. But in DFS, I think he's a solid play. I think he's going to surprise some people this week. Dylan Fratelli, a hometown. He's from Texas in the area, 130-1. I think he'd do a lot worse there. In fact, that surprises me. He's across the board pretty close to 125, 130-1. That might be something I add to my card. Put a quarter unit bet on or something like that. I think he should be closer to 100 at the very least, if not like something like 85 or 90-1. He's been playing some solid golf of late. I think a lot of people are overlooking that. He's gaining in almost, I believe it might be all 4 categories. I'm just going to double check on this real quick. 1 second, guys. I believe Dylan Fratelli is gaining in all 4 categories. When I was talking him up there for my core picks video, I know I looked at it. But let me go ahead and confirm this. Let's see. He's gaining in every category but off the tee, but it's like the ever slightest losing. He's losing 7/100ths of a stroke per round. I mean, I don't understand the number. Why the hell is he there 130-1? He's a local guy. The course fit makes perfect sense. He's just inaccurate off the tee. The guy hits it a country mile. The approach play, let's see. What's the exact number? He's gaining 0.36 shots per round on approach per round. And gaining around the green and gaining with the putter. Yeah, that's a bet for me. I'm going to be doing that as soon as I get off of here. And he's across the board at 125, 130-1. You're pretty much going to find that everywhere. Matthew Neesmith at 130, that intrigues me. I'd rather go to Sahith Theegala, though. They're at 150-1. And the shots gained stats for Sahith Theegala are not very advantageous, but he's a really streaky player. So it would not surprise me if he chucks that trend. Nick Taylor, his ball striking's been there, but I don't really know if he has winning upside with the flat stick. It starts to get really ugly really fast, guys. Austin Smotherman, always worth a few looks. He needs to find the putter, though. I mean, let's talk about the shots gained. I mean, first off, with an Austin Smotherman, he's gaining a third of a stroke per round off the tee. That's over his last 24 measured rounds, and 0.76 shots gained approach per round. Just outstanding stuff. So if you're going to get a really juicy number on him, like we're getting there to 250 to 1, again, maybe a quarter unit bet, right? You just put 25 bucks on him, something like that. That'd be quite the hefty payday if it ended up coming through. Charles Schwartzel finished in the top 5 last year. He's coming in with some decent recent form. I'll be playing him in DFS. 250 to 1, same type of story. Might be worth a few looks. Now we're getting to pure long shots, 250 still. I mean, Ortiz at 280. I've seen crazier things happen. This is his type of golf course. Peter Malnati at 350. I would never bet that, but that seems like a pretty juicy number. It's outrageously high at FanDuel as compared to the rest of the industry. So if you're going to take a look at that, take a look at FanDuel for Peter Malnati. And I mean, that's probably where I'm cutting it off, right? I don't really think any of these guys have an entirely large chance to win. I mean, 500 to 1 on Matt Wallace. I'm always a sucker for the guy. Sung Kang we talked about, right? He's a member. So if you wanted to go with that, I think that makes quite a bit of sense. I mean, a lot more sense than the other guys down here, right? Guys that have no familiarity with the golf course, that are, hardly even tour players at this point. Yeah, that's going to be it for in terms of outrights. So let's talk about some of these first round leaders now. Let's bring up that board. And with first round leaders, I haven't bet any first round leaders yet. It's just been outrights to this point of the week. But we'll talk through some of the bets that I'm consider adding. Let's talk about some of the comments down here. Let's see. Catch Me If You Can says, what do you know about Norris? I think he was mowing lawns last week. If you look at any shots gained for him, like from any database, like Fantasy National, Rick Rudden Goods database, anything like that, it's just going to give you like outstanding shots gained metrics, because all the events he's played at are relatively weak events. And he gains like a ton on approach. He gains a ton with the putter, something like that. And I don't know why he's priced where he is on DraftKings. He's priced at like $7,300. His outright numbers, kind of lower than you'd expect it to be. And I think that's just because of the modeling, right? The numbers that are out there, like the ones that we have access to, tell us that Sean Norris is this like prolific player. But we would know about the guy if he is this prolific player. And I'm very much in tune with golf, and my extent of knowledge on Sean Norris is like those random small field events that he's shown up at the PGA Tour, where he was like first round leader there at 11 o'clock on a Thursday morning. I can't really give you that much detail on him, other than all the shots gained metrics look insane, but he's priced way higher than he should be. And the same thing in the outright market. I think it's a little bit strange. Dylan says, is Dylan a good pick for DFS in terms of Fratelli? Yes, I completely agree that he is. He's like $7,200, $7,300. Certainly going to be in my player pool. And Draftkings Rex says Ortiz keeps popping up strong for me. Thoughts on him this week? So yeah, I touched on that towards the end there. He's 280 to 1. I think he makes some sense because of his length, right? He's pretty long, but very inaccurate off the tee. Just has to figure out the approach play. He's gains with the putter historically. One of the better putters on the PGA Tour. Just the approach play is so come and go. And of late, it's been all go, right? He has not been very solid with the irons. But if he can turn that around, the numbers there in the outright market. Now, if you're playing him at DFS, it's a little bit more risky, but I could see it. He certainly has the upside. And David says Adam Scott. So let's go to the 66 to 1 rate. Actually, we're on first round leader, so I guess I'll just mention it. He's at 66 to 1. That's the best number you can get on him right now. I just think it's a fair number. I don't think he wins this event. I think he has a good chance at competing just with the firepower that's out there, the strength of this field. I have a hard time betting him outright. I'll just say that. Maybe first round leader, depending on what number we can get on him here, might be a more attractive bet. But let's go through the board. Let's talk through the thought process here for first round leader. Some of the bets that I might be placing. And towards the top of the board, I usually avoid it, right? When you're talking about FRL, you're usually trying to target more volatile players. And frankly, just larger betting lines, because when you're chopping, usually you're going to end up chopping with first round leader, that you're getting more of the pie, right? So let's go towards this middle tier, actually maybe even the longer tier range, 50 to 60 to 1 range. Let's see. Cameron Champ would be a prime candidate for a first round leader at 66 to the type of one. Let's see. Jason Kokrak is no stranger to going low in round one. We've seen that quite a bit from him. Siwoo Kim, former member at this course. You take a look at 66 to 1. Keith Mitchell at 80 to 1. Now, he's probably the first one I really think I may consider adding. 80 to 1, the DraftKings price makes no sense. The outright number makes no sense. He's at 80 to 1. Why is the industry so down on Keith Mitchell this week? If you take a look at his shots gained, they've been unbelievable. In fact, I'll bring them up right now. Over his last 24 measured rounds, let's see. There he is. All right. He's gaining 0.69 shots gained off the tee per round, 0.23 shots gained approach per round, and losing 4 100ths of a stroke per round around the green and gaining 4 100ths of a stroke per round putting. So in general, he's gaining 0.88 shots, actually 0.92 shots per round to the field. So over a stroke better than the field. So first off, on DraftKings, $7,500. That is just an outrageous price tag. 80 to 1 in this field. It's a bomber's golf course. You're going to have to go out there for first round leaders specifically, like we're talking about right now, make a ton of putts. That's kind of what Keith Mitchell does. At the 3M Open, he made 8 straight birdies at one point, which was just so great to see as a Keith Mitchell better that week. He ended up finishing in the top 5. I absolutely love him here as well. I'm getting those same type of vibes where this is a golf course where you got to get it super hot with the irons and super hot with the approach play. And that's what Keith Mitchell does. When he gets those grooving together, he nearly wins golf tournaments, or does. We've seen him win before on tour, right, for the Honda Classic. So I like his chances here. Moving down to Sebastian, you can consider Seabass. They're at 85 to 1. Very volatile player, kind of similar to a Keith Mitchell. When he gets it rolling, he's usually shooting 7 to 8 under par. I don't love anyone in this range, truth be told. Matthew Wolff at 100 to 1. Maybe worth a look there. I think that's pretty fair for Wolf. Same thing with Pat Kazire. So Heath is only at 100 to 1. That shows you his volatility, guys. He's 130 to 1 to win this golf tournament, 150 to 1 potentially, and only 100 to 1 for first round leader. So they are respecting the positive end of his volatility. So that's good to see, right? That shows you what I'm talking about with that. I don't know. That might be in terms of first round leader, guys. There's not a whole ton of bets on the board that I'm super enamored with. There's Sean Norris, right? Man of the hour. We were talking about the unknown man. He's there at 110 to 1. Smotherman at 130. This is a ball striker's birdie fest. Perhaps he gets a super hot putter rolling. Where's Peter Malnati's number? I always got to look at Malnati for first round leader. There he is, 150 to 1. I'm going to sprinkle a few bucks on that. I can tell you that much. They're at 150. In terms of pure just dart plays at this point. And for first round leader, guys, you should embrace these pure dart plays because it's a 1 round sample size. Anything can truly happen. Just make sure that they're a volatile play. Matt Wallace, for example, 200 to 1 would not blow my mind if he ended up being first round leader. Par Barjon, if he figures out the putter for some reason, perhaps he takes it super low. Brandon Hagee, you could throw a shot on. I was going to say Jim Herman, but this is not a short enough golf course. If we were at Sedgefield or Wyndham, maybe we would consider that. Let's see. That's probably it. I mean, at this point, they're just pure flyer picks. By no means play JJ Colleen this week, and by no means bet him this week. This guy's a pure meme. He's like not even a real golfer. Just keep that in mind about JJ. We're going to hop into matchups now. We're going to talk about some 3 balls, that sort of thing. Let's start off with matchups. We'll catch up on chat, see if there's any questions before we do that, though. Draftkings says, calling it now, Smotherman wins this event. Boy, would that be pretty cool because I'll have plenty of exposure to him. Yeah, that would be pretty sweet. And Nick says, Munoz, Vegas, KH Lee, auto first round leader bits. I could see that with Munoz in Vegas, that's for sure. They're super volatile. KH Lee, he won here before. Maybe at this event specifically, but yeah, I definitely agree with the first 2. Those are extremely volatile players. So we're not going to go through every matchup, just maybe some of the ones towards the top of the board, right, that are a little bit more notable. And these are full tournament matchups, right? So this isn't going to be a round-by-round 3-ball. This is going to be based on finishing position for the entire event. So this, by far, the most consistent form of betting that you can get out there. And the one thing that I'll say here is don't just sit on DraftKings. You can very much so shop some of the lines that you're getting out there. And trying to find something better than -120, right? Some books will be at -110 for a lot of these matchups. minus 115 sometimes out there. So just understand that a lot of the matchups will be consistent, but you don't necessarily have to take the number that you see. Sometimes other books will have the matchup priced differently, right? Where the other guy will be the favorite, so on and so forth. So make sure that you're taking a look or keeping an eye out for that sort of thing. So let's start at the top of the board. This Taylor Gooch versus Kokrak group. You see Gooch is the favorite on DraftKings over a Jason Kokrak. And in my opinion, you have to go with the Gooch side, right? The ball striking much more consistent of late than a Jason Kokrak. And even though Kokrak has the top end volatility, that's not what we're targeting in a 50-50 matchup. We're looking for a pure median performance. And, when I'm playing matchups, I'll play 15 to 20 matchups in a given week. It's meant to be a very diverse portfolio. And like I said, you're just looking for that 50th percentile performance, right? So I'm not, sweating any one matchup, right? By the end of the week, I'll look at my 20. And if I hit, 12 or 13 or more, that type of thing, I know I made money. Now, if you hit 11, you don't always make money because of the juice, right? I think a lot of people forget about that when it comes to betting. Makes a huge difference out there, right? So I'm pretty happy hitting 13 or, maybe even 12 out of my 20 bets here. But it's meant to be more of a slow grind, right? If you end up hitting 16 or 17 out of 20, you're going to have a massive week in terms of ROI. But they're rare, right? Golf's a hard sport to bet, right? And if you're hitting it right around, let's say like a 56% rate, you're doing a pretty good job. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about a few of the other bets. I have my eye on this Brooks versus Leachman group. In fact, I'd be taking Leachman there. Leachman, one of the better long iron players that we have. At a golf course that is relatively lenient off the tee. That does play into Mark Leishman's game. So even though he didn't play the best last week, certainly somebody to consider, especially against Brooks, who I'm looking to fade in pretty much every single format. I don't think he's here to play golf. I think he's here to hit a few golf shots, get out of there on a Friday afternoon. You have Mitchell versus Munoz. I have no idea who I would pick there. That's a stay away for me. I think just very similar players. I think it's a very nice, very solid choice by DraftKings. They pin those two players up against each other. With Norn in Vegas, you have to take the Norn side because first off, he's been playing better golf than Johnny Vegas. He's also by far the more consistent player. And like I said, this is all about consistency, all about 50th percentile type of performances. And that would certainly be Norn there. So I think he's the rightful favorite, being treated as underdog money there at plus 100. Moving on, we have Xander versus Burns. I would take the same Burns side. Just a little bit more firepower for this type of birdie fest. JT versus Scheffler, I'd take the JT side. I think this is much closer to a 50-50 than JT being an underdog. And you're not getting a whole lot of juice there, right? Just plus 105, right? $5 extra on your $100 bet. But somebody that I would fire on, he's just a better course fit than Scotty Scheffler. Scheffler more equipped for some of the more difficult conditions than somebody like a Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas, again, more of a high birdie or better percentage type of guy. More equipped for something in that 20 to 25 under range. Scott versus Niemann, it would be Scott for me all day. It's not Scott, sorry, Niemann for me all day, even though Scott is the underdog. So I certainly wouldn't take minus 130. Sorry, I can't speak right now, guys. If you can get that closer to even money though, right? You can find a book where it has this price closer to an even matchup. Maybe then you take Joaquin Niemann. Spieth versus Fleetwood, that's a stay away. Spieth is going to be a sizable favorite pretty much no matter what book you're at. Then you have Zalatoris versus DJ, where I'd be taking DJ all day. I mean, you can see that the whole hometown narrative thing, guys. Dustin Johnson should never be the underdog against Will Zalatoris until, Will Zalatoris figures out how to putt, how to do anything consistent with the flat stick. This isn't a GPP player. You're not evaluating who's the better GPP play between Will Zalatoris and Dustin Johnson, where I would say the volatility favors a Will Zalatoris. We're talking about pure, finishing position, 50th percentile type of performance. It's DJ all day. I do not understand that line. So if you can get any type of plus money on DJ there, hopefully more, right? Hopefully you can get plus 115 and plus 110. I mean, he's minus 130. You'd hope you're getting something like plus 110, but I would certainly be on the Dustin Johnson side of those things. Let's talk about some free balls. Now, this will be obviously just round by round. So who has the best score of round one? And now, obviously, with the tournament matchups, it's a little bit more consistent. I don't play nearly as many three balls, but you can get some nice numbers in three balls. So because you have the three golfers, there's going to be players juiced up to plus 180, sometimes even up to plus 250, who have a legitimate shot at winning their group. So we'll talk about some of those here in a second, see if there's any questions down there. If there aren't, that's okay. Let's talk about some of the three balls. So first off, the featured groups are the ones that we want to focus on because that's where a lot of the betting action is going to be. And Burns, Hoagie, and Thomas is surely one of them. And for me, a lot of people are going to try and take JT, right? He's obviously over 4-round sample sizes. The clear person you'd want to take here, but in terms of a 1-round sample size, I have my eyes on the same Burns, plus 170. I think that's about a fair number. I don't think it's drastically valuable. I don't think you're getting a lot of plus EV there or anything like that. And in terms of who I think actually wins this group, it would be Sam Burns. He's known to be a quick starter. He's gone out there, been first-round leader more than a handful of times over the last year, and he is one of the most, I'd say, wide range of outcomes that there is. He's one of the players who, I forget the exact number on it. There was somebody on Twitter who tweeted this last year, but I know it was over 8% of the time he had a top 1 percentile type of performance. So his ceiling happens about 8 times more often than any other player on tour. The unfortunate part is that he also has those negative rounds where he's losing 5 or 6 shots gained to the field 5 or 6 times more than everyone else in the world. So he's a very volatile golfer. But like I said, in a 1-round sample size for these 3 balls, I'm always trying to take those underdogs that have that wide range of outcomes. So it would certainly be Sam Burns for me in that group. This next group, I'd like to bet Taylor Gooch, but he has no business being a plus 160 there. So that would be a stay away. Hideki probably shouldn't be the favorite considering the back issue. So as much as I think he would be the pick there, not somebody I'd be investing money into. Now, Mark Leachman at plus 190, he's a perfect example of a wide range of outcomes. When he has the putter, he's gaining to the field with the flat stick. He's been first-round leader more than a handful of times as well. So I like him there at plus 190. Now, the Xander, DJ, Kisner group, that is certainly going to be another featured group. Wow, they're really taxing you here. I'd hope that Xander was closer to plus 150, plus 160. I'd hope that DJ was like plus 160, plus 170. I'd much rather just take DJ against Will Zalatoris, right? Take the head-to-head matchup, take the plus money there. So that would be a stay away for me. And the last super headliner type of group would be the Spieth, Scheffler, and KH Lee group. And I guess it would be Spieth, right? He's plus 190. I think plus 280 on Lee's probably fair. But similar story, wide range of outcomes. Jordan Spieth, no stranger to shooting super low, but also completely blowing up. And that's at least personally what I prefer for some of these just 1-round sample size type of bets. We'll end it there. We'll see if there's any questions. There's a question. We'll talk about this. So Draftkings Rex says, thoughts on Palmer and Watson, sneaky DFS plays and or straight up bets. So for me, I like Ryan Palmer, Texas guy. The ball striking numbers haven't been quite as horrible as people are giving him credit for over his last 24 rounds. And so I like him in DFS. In terms of an outright bet, I'm not sure I can get there. And then you have Bubba Watson. Now, the issue is the putter for Bubba. He's better at harder conditions in general just because he doesn't make all that many putts. The ball striking kind of keeps him in it. I like him more in DFS than I do from an outright perspective. Kind of like Ryan Palmer. I don't think he goes out there and actually wins this week. But in terms of a DFS play, making his hay with his ball striking, slightly more intrigued. Not sure if I'm going to get there in my player pool, but I think you could do a whole lot worse. So hopefully that answers your question there, man. I appreciate everyone for stopping by, for this last second live stream. Of course, our actual DFS stream will be Wednesday night at 7 p.m. as per usual. So tomorrow night, I'll be reminding you guys on Twitter, of course, in the Discord if you're in that sort of thing. So plenty of reminders will be out there, but we'll be touching on the weather there, projections, ownership, and then any fantasy-related questions. So until then, guys, best of luck with any of your outright bets this week. DFS lineups, if you're doing that sort of thing. Make sure you like the video, like the live stream if you guys haven't already. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't too, so you don't miss any of the content to come. Like I said, best of luck, and let's get